Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. This is going to be kind of a shorter for me video. We're just going to talk a bit about buffing your weapons with elements. This is more of a PSA. This isn't something you hear talked about too much, but considering we're fighting murmur enemies, and they're very weak to, say, electricity damage, which is extremely powerful right now, against the new faction. It seems kind of appropriate time-wise to talk about using abilities to buff weapon damage pertaining to single mods, because we are in the current form of Warframe where we're at the next stage of power creep. Everything's getting stronger as people are farming up shards through the Netra cells, and you're starting to get more and more shards from your call missions, because of course everybody's doing that, and Archon hunts. Things are just going to continue to scale slowly for now, but we had like a big lurch, if you will. So I'm on Volt right now. Reason being is one of the weapons that I've been running against the Murmur to sort of speed things up, and just have a more casual experience. Keep it as easy as possible. Kill the enemies as quick as possible. As I've been running an Electric Phantasma with 100 munitions, it's very, very relaxing as you burn through everything. I'm not really having to cheese anything. You just walk through, kill everything. If you want to move through fast, obviously do that as well. But one of the things that is now, we finally hit because of the new purple shards, right, is hitting elemental weightings. And that's the purpose of this video. Is hitting elemental weightings for electricity that are in the thousands and above are now pretty easy. Before, it used to be something where in order to hit like 2,000 elemental weighting, you would need like a very specific strength setup on Volt, and you'd need like a Fisher buff and potentially like Nidus also, right? But you can hit 13, 14, 1500, 1600 actually now, electricity weighting on, say, like this Phantasma Prime. Now, I don't have the purple shards on here, so it's going to be a bit of math. But because it's a shotgun, it carries a prime charge shell, which is 165. Shell shock is 60. And we'll get a calculator. I'm going to be adding everything up over here. And I have a ribbon for this, which is status chance, crit chance, electricity. So 50 for that. So we'll do 165 plus 60 plus 50. So 275 weighting. Right. Nice wholesome number. You end up with massive proc priority for your weighting on electricity, which is pretty good because we want to kill with electricity dots. A little bit of 100 munitions. Obviously, we could buff it more with the Murmur Faction mod, but it's plus 30. We don't have the Prime variant yet. But another way you can boost this even further, using Volt as the example, is Shock. And right now with this minor strength setup, the extra damage from Shock Trooper and the augment is hold to cast will grant all allies within 15 meters an additional 100% electricity damage for their attacks for 40 seconds. Pretty basic. It counts as the equivalent of, like, say this right now is 254%, and that would count as like the equivalent of a mod, right? So 275 plus 254 is 529. You can obviously buff this further by going further into a more dedicated strength build. Get to 3, 4, 5, 600. Obviously Fisher buffs and whatnot, and Nidus buffs on top of that. So it's pretty easy to hit like 8, 900 by yourself on demand. If you're running a dedicated strength setup, but obviously I have different multipliers on here, like I have Smite Fusion and Vigorous Swap. Keeps things pretty interesting. I was using this to blow through like murmur missions, where it's a strength run. The 2 and the 1 was pretty easy. So 529 is the electricity weighting. You can further increase this with the weighting on Volt's shield, and this is for electricity. Obviously, electricity is Volt's element. You can further increase this by carrying a shield, which gives you another 50, which would bring us to 579. Just from unaffected from anywhere else, just straight mods. You can go even higher with Nidus, obviously. And now we have the shards, right? Now, I actually have my purple shards on Gyre. But we'll do the math. So the Tau Forged Violet, sorry I said purple earlier, is gained 45% primary electricity damage, gain an additional 15% per Crimson, Azure, or Violet. Crimson, Azure, or Violet. Now, the interesting thing with this, it makes sense when you think about it, but it doesn't lead you to come to the conclusion when you read it, is this actually counts the shard itself. So there's actually no way to get one of these where it's just 45%, right? The bonus is, because this is a Tau Forged, obviously the non-Tau Forged variant is going to be lower, but it's always going to give you the gain that it lists at the top. So this one says plus 45, and then it's going to give you one stack of the additional stack that you get from having the elements on it. So this, with a Tau Forged, I literally can't get 45. It's going to be 60. Now I'm running 2 other Taus, but their ability damage because it's Gyre. So we have 579 so far. But just adding up the Azures, if we were to do, say, if we really wanted to invest in this, times 5. So it would be 225 waiting on this. And then we would have the 225 plus 15 times 5 times 5 again. And then we would have to add that to the other values. So plus 225 plus 579. And without doing anything too crazy except for the massive shard investment, we are at almost a 1200% electricity weighting on our weapons, which is pretty insane. And to be honest, it feels a little overkill. But these sort of weightings, there are a couple frames that have been able to do this. And again, that's before a Nidus buff. You had Nidus buff in, that the one augment on Volt gets a whole lot more mileage. God forbid you get a Fisher buff. You can shoot up over 2,000 really easily. Really, really easily. But there are frames associated with almost all of the elements. Like right now we don't have a gas frame. But like Ember is for heat. Cold is frost. Toxin used to be Grendel. But he's not viral. But you have Grendel for viral. You have Oberon for radiation. Saren is toxin corrosive. And obviously viral on the 4, because of course she's got all the good elements. Volt for electricity. But each one is associated with a boost that they can give to their weapons, right? Now, we don't have a gas frame, and we don't have IPS, except for Garuda. And it's more of a status. It's not like it boosts. None of the IPS have anything where it's like it gives a boost to an IPS, right? Impact, puncture, slash. So it's not like we have anything where it boosts slash as a like a direct increase, like a mod, and you probably wouldn't want that. Garuda has her 4, right? And then you have things like puncture from, say, like Chroma Augment and from Rhino Roar, which I guess can be good. Helps a little bit with crit. Obviously, reduces the damage output of enemies. Some good memes with Equinox. If you want to run like a roar setup, you can get some really high damage reduction, effective damage reduction, using like a roar setup. But yeah, this is just sort of a PSA. If you're looking to get some more damage, or you're not really so hard set on a frame, because a lot of people when they mod, they have a frame that they want to use, and that frame they kind of just want to take everywhere. But if you're of the mindset where you're not really hard set on the frame, you're just trying to get a combination together to deal with content as easily as possible, just keep in mind the frames have a lot of augments. Some of these are helminthable, to where you can add elements. Most of them, unless obviously like they're combined, like, you know, Grendel, right? Like you can't obviously separate out the viral. Act like mods, where if you're having trouble getting all of your mods onto a build due to like a Riven, or say like a tenant weapon with a progenitor, and you don't have like an alternative like you don't have like multiples of the same Kuva or tenant weapon, and you're having issues with a progenitor element, you can also deal with it like that. So this is just sort of a PSA. And also Ember, if you're wondering, does have the absolute highest buff, because with very specific setups, you can actually get really insane strengths on most of these frames if you're actually trying to run like a specific setup for like meme purposes or something, because most of these buffs apply to teammates, right? So it's more relative on like a defense where everybody's like camped around something. But like Ember, because of her passive, can get up 4,000 or 5,000 depending on how much you want to get dedicated into it, because she gains the strength from enemies, right? And then you can apply that to like a massive heat dot. It's pretty relative when you're doing like arbitrations and stuff like that. Like if you're doing like an Ogress setup, it's really good to have like a heat Ember, where she's built around her augment that allows heat to get onto allied weapons, right? So pretty good memes. Obviously, this is like niche stuff where it's not really something specific, but tools in a toolbox. So just keep this in mind. This is a quick little PSA. We'll keep the build setup at that. We're in a new age of Warframe where these sorts of like 2,000, 1,500 power strength is possible. And we have shards that essentially act like faction damage for abilities. You can armor strip, like the value of corrosive kind of went down a little bit. This is just where we're at. So if you're modding and you're looking for like to really, really maximize performance, a lot of these abilities are helminthable, so make sure to check that. If you're trying to get and you're running like high power strength setups, there are cases where if you have a Riven that has like, because if you're trying to do like a dot build, right, like you want faction damage, but if you're trying to do a weapon build and you have a Riven with faction damage on it, and you have the space on your weapon or whatever, where you have the faction primed faction on it, plus a Riven with faction, consider something like this for like your heat and electricity setups, because this might actually get you ahead. It's literally just a math game. It depends on what your roles are. So this can be another thing that can help. So anyway, PSA over. Just make sure to check those out. Cold is frost is cold. Volt is electricity. Ember's heat. Corrosive is Saren, and obviously Hydroid. Oberon is radiation. It is also a Helminth. Viral is Grendel. We don't have gas or magnetic. So just keep it in mind. And I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's. Take it easy.